Hello?
We're making another segment, Attorney Golan, on immigration update on the air. And as we have mentioned on our program, this is a community service program for all those people who have immigration concerns. And for those people who would like to know what's going on about immigration in the United States of America. Now, Attorney Golan, in our past interview, you mentioned about some good news for those people who are here in the United States and whose children were born here, and they can they stay? Did you say temporarily stay here in the United States without being deported?
Well, the Immigration Service about 2 years ago issued a statement about priorities. Okay, so they have a list of priorities which are really negative priorities. If you are a top priority, which means that they are very interested in deporting you. And if you are a low priority, it means that they are not interested in deporting you. So you better, on this particular list, you better be a low priority. And the low priority is somebody who is here a long time, who has no criminal record, and who is taking care of some American citizen or immigrants who need his help. For example, young children or elderly parents or maybe somebody else. Okay, so these people, even if they come to the attention of immigration, immigration is not in any rush to deport them and leave them alone. So what they really enjoy is the benefit of being left alone.
Right.
Immigration is not bothering them.
Yes.
However, they don't get, only very rarely would they get an employment permit.
Yes. Now, you mentioned this about children being born here. I remember many years back that someone had consulted with you, and she had stayed here illegally in the beginning, but later on found employment, and of course had a daughter who was born in the United States. How interesting it was when they came to the studio one time and presented this daughter who was already a grown-up, and she was the one who petitioned her mom to stay in the United States. Incredible. Like, it took that long, and it was the same daughter, the baby, who petitioned her mom. Does that happen many times, Attorney Golan? Is that the only avenue?
Yes, it happens many times, and I consider it a very good long-range planning. Somebody made long-range planning.
I was tremendously surprised. That incredible. This baby, you know, like, well, had to go to school in the U.S., graduated, and finally was the only individual who was able to petition her for her to really stay permanently in the United States.
As a matter of fact, such children received some kind of a label which is giving them not as a compliment, and this label is anchor babies.
Oh, I
see. They are considered anchor babies, okay? Now, anchor babies is used more for those people who come here deliberately for the purpose of having a baby here, even if they come here, even if the woman comes here when she's already pregnant, like 6 or 7 or 8 months pregnant, planning to have the baby here in the United States, and then the mother and the baby actually leave the United States.
Yes.
But the baby already has tucked in the diapers an American passport. Okay, because this baby is already an American citizen. So the baby grows up some years in another country, maybe in the Philippines, maybe in China, maybe somewhere else. And later on, they send the child, when it's not a baby anymore, they send the child back here to start an education. When the child is age 21 in one day, they show up in some lawyer's office and file a petition for the parents.
Wow. But do the children have to be working to be able to file a petition for their parents?
No. They don't need to be working because the regulations about affidavit of support permit the affidavit of support or a secondary affidavit of support by somebody else who is working and has a good income tax return.
Now, speaking about affidavit of support, Attorney Golan, can this be anybody else, like a kind neighbor, somebody in the community, or has to be a relative?
It can be anybody else. It can be a friend, a relative, a stranger, an employer. Anybody can provide the supplemental affidavit of support, except in one situation. There is one very limited situation where there is a specific list of relatives who are required to provide the affidavit of support, and this is in case of a petitioner who passed away, and the beneficiary is trying to get the immigrant visa anyway, based on the petition of the deceased petitioner. Then the affidavit of support by the dead petitioner must be replaced by an affidavit of support by a close relative only.
I see. Now, Attorney Golan, what about someone who is also working on a work visa but not a resident? Can they also provide, like being a relative who is working here temporarily for a year or two under contract, can they also provide affidavit of support?
No.
I see.
An affidavit of support may come only from a permanent resident or an American citizen.
Now, are they bound, those people that give affidavit of support, are they bound to that support for how long a time?
The person who provides the affidavit of support is bound by it until the beneficiary becomes an American citizen, or until the beneficiary accumulates 10 years of employment in the United States.
So what could be a disadvantage, would you say? I mean, it's kind to do that, but what could happen? What could be a disadvantage for someone who is providing affidavit of support to not a relative or to someone who they don't know exactly what will happen in the future?
Well, the disadvantage could be that this immigrant, might fall on very bad times and require certain types of government assistance, which will permit the government or even a local government, not necessarily the federal government, will permit the government agency to go after the person who gave the affidavit of support and require a refund of the cost of the support they gave the immigrant. This happens very infrequently, very rarely, because the immigrant must really fall on very, very hard times and receive only some specific types of assistance, which is defined in the law as an obligation for the giver of the affidavit of support.
Thank you so much. You're listening to Attorney Jack Golan of Hopkins, Shumay & Golan Law Offices, and this is located at 3250 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 1918 in Los Angeles, California. We'll be back with more.